afternoon to you all matriculants. It is your chance now. It is your time to learn more with this. This is your best channel for learning. Yes, the name of the show is Learn Extra Live with me, Abraham, and I'm joined by Mr. Tinyuko. How are you, sir?
Good, how are you, Abraham?
I'm all pumped up and ready to learn more.
Great, great indeed.
Just a good reminder to the matriculants, if you knew or if you don't know, we are left with 96 days, 5 hours before you write your final examination, which is starting on the 28th of October. So there's no time. So if you're still playing around, time might be against you. So there's just no time. And talking about time, let's just keep time and see what are we learning about today. Mr. Tinyuko, take us through.
Good. Thank you, Mindsetters. Here we are, Physical Sciences grade 12, and I like the fact that John was dealing with the grade 11s, and what he was working on actually links up nicely with what we're going to do. So if you check here, what we're going to do today at grade 12 level, let's have a look here. We're going to provide a brief revision on how generators work. You will remember that last week we had something to do with this, so we will give a brief revision as to how generators work. We started on that already, so we're going to take it a little bit further. And then next, what we will also do is to discuss and explain to you the difference between direct current and alternating current generators. So these are generators, and remember, with generators, what we're talking about here, we're talking about these electrical devices that are used to generate the current. In other words, they are used to manufacture it, if it is manufacturing it, getting it to be in existence so that we can be able to use it. So the moment you begin to use your electricity at home, you must know that some generator somewhere was used to generate that current. So that's what we're talking about today. So we'll give a distinction between direct current generators and alternating current generators, okay? And of course, we will also introduce you to what we call AC circuits, okay, and explain what we mean by the root mean square values. And if you remember very well from what you have learned already, or if you're still busy with this section at school, you would know that we call them the RMS values. RMS values, just an abbreviation for root mean square. So we will explain to you what that is and where it comes from. Okay, so that is basically what we'll be talking about. And these AC current circuits, remember, when you deal with Ohm's law, and as grade 12s, you dealt with Ohm's law at grade 11, and with Ohm's law, you're looking basically at direct current, okay? You're looking at a circuit that is based on cells or batteries, okay, or a battery. So you've got direct current there. But this time, we want to also introduce to you a little bit, not so much to it, but we will do that, introducing you to AC circuits. Okay, now let's start and we look at what is the lesson about for today. Looking at what we have here, we've got alternating current generator. Now, what we also need to be aware of is that when we're talking about generators, all of them, whether it's direct current generators or alternating current generators, what do? Generators convert mechanical energy into electrical energy. Okay, what basically it means in simple terms is that there is something that is used to provide that mechanical energy. Okay, it could be storm water, it could be whatever, it could be people manually turning generators, but that mechanical energy that the stormwater is using, okay, is bringing to that turbine, that it's turning the turbine, that is actually or eventually turning the coil inside that generator so that we can get the current. That mechanical energy is converted into electrical energy. So that is the energy conversion that happens in generators. And that question is likely to be there, okay? I don't want to be sounding like a sangoma, but I understand that when we talk about generators and motors, this is one area where examiners would like to examine you, to check on whether you understand that generators are used to convert mechanical energy into electrical energy. And don't forget that on the other hand, motors, as seemingly being devices that are opposite to generators, what do? They make energy changes that are opposite to generators. They convert electrical energy into mechanical energy. That's what motors will do. So generators, basically all of them would always convert mechanical energy into electrical energy. So these are the devices that give us the energy that we use at our homes. Now the diagram below, okay, it's just a sketch to show us what an AC generator looks like, alternating current generator looks like. Let's have a look at it. If you look at this diagram here, or this sketch, you would see that here, this part, I can ask you, because you know we've been teaching this, and last week I think we said a lot about it. What type of a commutator are you having there? Okay, if you look at this, I'm not so sure if Abraham can remember what we spoke about last week. If you have got these type of rings, okay, if you've got this type of rings on your commutator, which we call the slip rings, okay, that tells you that we've got an AC generator, okay? We've got an AC generator because we've got slip rings. Okay, and we're going to see soon what would distinguish an AC generator from a DC generator. Okay, so that's what we have. And what are those small pieces here that are attached or that are connected or that are actually in touch or with your rings here, the slip rings? It's something we call brushes. So these are brushes. Okay, and of course these are the connectors or the wires that are going to harness the energy, the electrical energy that we're going to use. Remember, at this point here, the mechanical energy has been converted into electrical energy, and from here we harness it and begin to use it for our own purposes. Okay, so that's what we have. Now, that arrow there, if you see this, and this is what I've always noticed with learners when you are writing your exam, the question paper would have these diagrams. Once you have a diagram of nature like this one, and you have got an arrow put somewhere there in a turning kind of a thing, you must know already that the examiner is already talking to you about a generator, because that arrow means that this coil is actually being turned within that magnetic field. Okay, so that's what you should be aware of. Now let's have a look at this part here and try to explain this AC current that is generated by the AC generator, alternating current generator. In an AC generator, the induced EMF, induced current, okay, changes in magnitude and direction as the coil turns or is turned inside, is being turned inside that magnetic field. Okay? Now, John was just talking to you now about the induced EMF, and we're still continuing talking about that. That induced EMF is due to the electromagnetic induction that is happening as the coil cuts across that magnetic flux that is in there. He has said a mouthful, has taught you, has shown you or explained it to you so thoroughly. I'm using that, what he was talking to you about just now, to actually explain this further. Now, as that coil turns inside that magnetic field, let's begin to see why we end up having what we call alternating current. Okay, a current that constantly changes direction, okay, in a rapid oscillatory motion. Okay, so now let's have a look at this. If you look at this diagram here, this diagram sort of show us the coil inside that magnetic field. So the white lines going that way represent the magnetic field. Okay, so that is the magnetic field. in that direction. Okay, you have your magnetic field in that direction. But then this brown one, it's the coil turning inside the magnetic field. And now the green arrows are just showing us that the direction in which the coil is turning. Now at this point here, let me just change the color of my pen so that we can see this thoroughly. Let me not use white because we already have our diagram in white here. In this direction here, or in this orientation here of the coil inside the magnetic field, at that position, we've got 0 EMF induced. Okay? The direction of the magnetic field is in the direction of motion of the coil. And therefore, we've got 0 magnetic field, because at that point, and John explained this, at that point, we have got the angle between the magnetic field lines and direction of propagation. They are actually, they are parallel to each other. The angle is 0, and therefore, that cos theta thing gives you 0 magnetic flux. 0 magnetic flux gives you 0, or will end up giving you 0 EMF. Therefore, the EMF at that point is 0. Now, the coil turns. So it turns in this way, turns that way. It is at that point now, okay? And you can therefore see that at this point, at that turning, you have got a point somewhere there. You've got, if you like, you've got a maximum. You've got a maximum EMF that is produced, and according to the graph, in the positive direction. Remember that animation that John was showing you, giving you the maximum plus EMF induced and the maximum negative EMF induced. So that's what we're trying to explain here. So you are in the maximum EMF in the positive there. It turns again, it comes to a position similar to that. So it turned this way, now it turned from there, it turned again, then it's upright like that. What do we have? It comes to 0 EMF, 0 output again. It continues to turn, it comes this way. It is at that point, it gives you maximum EMF, but in the what? In the negative. And then you turn it back again to that position. Remember, it's turning this way, turns that way, then now it was this way, now you turn it again, you are there. At that point, upright again, it gives you 0 EMF output. So at the end, you've got your smooth, okay, at the end, you've got your smooth graph as you see it like that, okay? AC, changing that alternating current because it's changing direction as it is getting generated like that. Okay, now, when this happens, let's come to South Africa, for example. You look at this, you can see that this is basically a wave kind of a function. And if I ask you, you can say this is a sine curve, okay? A sine curve. It gives us something similar to a sine curve. Now, in South Africa, our electricity is supplied at this frequency here, 50 hertz, which means you've got 50 cycles in 1 second. What does that mean? It means that you've got these complete oscillations, This is one. From there to there, I've got one complete oscillation. Now, if we're supplying our electricity in South Africa at that level of frequency, 50 hertz, 50 complete oscillations in a second, it means you have got all these happening within a second. You have got 50 of this, 1, 2, 3, 4, until you get to 50 of all these. Then you've got what the frequency is for our electricity as we use it in South Africa. That's basically what it means there. Okay, now, proceeding, we looked at the AC generator. Let's now quickly look at the DC generator, direct current generator. Okay, now when we're talking about direct current generator, this is a generator which is obviously will have the same type of features, and it's the same. Even with AC generators, you could see that it's the same type of features like that of a motor. The only thing is that instead of putting in energy to turn it, we're actually turning it to give us the energy. That is the opposite. So the same thing here. This is the same looking like a motor, okay? A DC motor, except that there's no battery or cell supplying energy into this thing. Instead, what we have is actually this object here, this particular device here. We're turning it so that it gives us the output, it gives us the energy. Okay, and how is it different from the AC generator? If you look at the commutator again, this is where the thing is. Instead of slip rings, which we have for AC generators, what do we have? We've got what we call split ring commutator. Split ring because, look at it, this point here, it's split. You've got this ring, this piece of ring on that side, and the piece of ring on that side. That split ring tells us that we're talking about direct current generator. And these these pieces of the object here, or the things that are connected to the split ring commutators, we call them brushes. They are still brushes like we had with the AC generators. And of course, that is a slip ring generator. So P and Q are actually what we call brushes. Okay. Now, like I said, you see that arrow there turning it, you must know that we're talking generators. Okay. Hope it's time for us to have some water so that we can continue well with this lesson.
Yes, indeed. To all the mindsetters that are watching, a big shout out to you, but a special one to Matela Makovikov, who's celebrating her birthday today. She says, so loving the show and really enjoying it. And I enjoy it because it's I'm celebrating my birthday today at school. So happy birthday to you, Matela. I hope you're enjoying the show. But mindsetters, 3 things that I need to tell you is that join us on Facebook. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/LearnExtra. Or you can also follow us on Twitter at LearnExtra. And lastly, this show is proudly sponsored by Macmillan, so you can download the notes for free on our website, which is learnextra.co.za/live. Do not move, don't go anywhere. See you after the break. Welcome back, matriculants. Now, exciting news you can join us from the 25th to the 27th, Thursday up until Saturday at Coca-Cola Dome in Johannesburg. Come, it's for free. Register also for the Future Ed Expo. It's one of the biggest expos, the only biggest expo in South Africa, where you can learn more about resources that are from different companies and teacher and classroom resources that are available for you to use for free. So come meet us as the presenters. I'll be there from Thursday until Saturday. So come meet us. There are lots of prizes to be won. Also, we're having a big draw every day at 3 o'clock. So if you want freebies, come through. We'll give you nice t-shirts and pens and hampers. So it's going to be nice.
It's going to be nice indeed. Definitely don't miss that one.
I hope to see you there
with
too.
Your mind. I think I'm
Even
going
if
to
it's
make
Saturday.
time, really. Yeah. It's going to be Saturday anyway. So
It's Thursday until Saturday.
Thursday, so I can just earmark Saturday. I think somehow Thursday and Friday may not be so okay for me, but Saturday, watch it.
We'll see you.
I'll be
Take
there.
it away, TK.
All right. Now, here we go. Remember when before we went for the break, we were still talking to you about the DC generator and how different it is from the AC generator. So that is the DC generator. Now down here, I just want to have some discussion with you, continuing to explain to you what this DC generator is about. Now, firstly, like we said, the issue here is that we've got what we call split ring commutator as opposed to slip ring commutators for an AC generator, okay? And that split ring commutator, all it does is to ensure that the current passing through the coil only moves in one direction. That is very important. It only moves in one direction, and hence the name direct current. one way. It can't be any other way. Okay, so it is the split ring commutator that actually makes it to be a DC generator. The terminal P, this P here, and the terminal Q will have their own charges. P will always be positive and Q will always be negative. So that is what it is, one-way kind of direction, okay? So now, if it is direct current, okay, and you've got positive and negative, it means that we know, I mean, as we know that we're talking conventional current moving from positive to negative, okay? So that is the direction that we're going to have. We can't have any other thing different. So it's a direct current generator, okay? Something that will work more similar like current or energy we will get from a battery, okay? Now, the magnitude of this induced EMF will change during each rotation. But it doesn't change in a similar manner like we have it with the AC generator. And we're going to see that like we did with the AC generator. Let's just discuss this here, okay? Let's just discuss this diagram here that shows us the generation of current or in the induction of EMF in a DC generator. Now, the same thing that we had in this position of the coil. Now, this is a cross-section of the coil. It's like you cut the middle part or the back part of the coil, and you only see that line that turns in a particular direction as the turning happens, as that mechanical energy is supplied to the generator so that we can ultimately get an output being the EMF. All right. Now, that turns in this direction. At that point, like we said earlier on, is the point that John was talking about where the magnetic field and the direction of motion of both the direction of the motion of the magnetic field and that of the coil are in the same, okay, direction. So you've got them parallel to each other, so you've got a situation where you've got zero EMF induced on your coil. So we've got a 0 point there at that point. But then you turn it, okay, like that, turn from there, this direction, it comes to that point. At this point here, you have taken it up to a maximum. You continue to turn it, it decreases and comes down and down and down until it gets to this position where you are back at the 0 point. But something very interesting happens from that point, which makes it different from the AC current, okay, as induced onto that coil. What makes it different? Look at it. Because of the split ring commutator, which only allows current to be induced in one direction, what we see happening is that when it gets to this point, it is at a point, if you like, where the current, again, you are at the induced EMF is at 0, but then the current is made to move in one direction. So instead of going down like we saw with the AC generator, the direction of the current is still in the same, okay? The direction of the current is still the same. So it goes up. So as it turns from this point to that point, what do you have? It builds up to a maximum again, and then as it continues to turn until it gets to that position, it actually decreases, the EMF induced decreases until it reaches that point or that 0 point again. So we've got current in one direction, and that is how a DC generator works as opposed to the AC generator. Okay, so that's what we have. Now, when we look at how these generators help us to get current, or for example, where do we get energies? We know we can get energy stored in batteries and cells. But is this energy energy that we can rely on, energy that is easy for us to use, energy that is cheaper for us to use? We find that basically if we rely on batteries, we use batteries, batteries and cells being the main source of direct current, these batteries are actually too expensive to provide large amounts of current. In other words, just think about it. If you were to take your, perhaps take your 12 volt batteries, car batteries, and you want to supply energy to just your own house, think of how many you will need to pack together to be able to run your house for a few days, not even for a month or a week, just for a few days. You would have to pack a lot of them, okay, so that you can be able to run the house. And I don't think you will have a room enough to keep them, because you need to be having a huge number of them. So it becomes expensive, because buying that number of batteries, maybe 1,000 of them or more than that, packaging them in together, that becomes very expensive. The use of cells as the units of batteries, it's expensive. So what is the best way then to get energy? The best way to get energy is to use generators. But then with these generators as well, which ones are going to help us better than the others? For example, direct current generator and alternating current generator, which one is basically going to give us the best output, less expensive and easy to supply all over to millions and millions of people? If you're talking South Africa, but if you're talking the world, we're talking billions and billions of households. And apart from households, we're talking companies that use huge amounts of energy. So what generators will be more user-friendly for us? If we look at the direct current generators, okay, we find that the direct current, it's very difficult to transform it. Basically, if it's from batteries, to transform a DC current from a battery to AC, very, very difficult. At some point, even not possible at all. So when we use DC generators in the same way, we can use transformers there, but again, the transformers become less effective. So you're using batteries, you can't transform that current. You can't use transformers. You use DC generators, transformers are less effective. In other words, the output of that transformer transforming direct current into AC current becomes very low, and therefore it doesn't become that useful to us. We want something that will give us the best possible output ever that we can use, and most people can use. In fact, people in their multitudes can use at a given time. So that tells you that even with DC generators, we do have a problem here, because it doesn't give us effective transformation of current. And when the difference is that when we're transforming this current from AC generators, it becomes easy to do, it becomes cheaper, and therefore we come to the conclusion that basically the use of AC generators is the way to go when it comes to generating electricity. Okay, now, the potential difference of AC generators can be changed by using what we call step-up or step-down transformers. Now, what are transformers? These are things that are used to make your EMF or your voltage output bigger, or you can make it smaller. You can actually play around with it. If you want to carry it smaller and then at some point you want to take it higher, you always do that with transformers. And if you look at the power stations, even power stations, you will see that they've got a whole lot of transformers that the electricity is taken into before it can be taken into our houses for use. Okay, so we can step it up, we can make it huge, and what happens is basically that in the power station where it is generated, okay, say in Medupi when it is completed, okay, right, you go in there, when it is generated, we make use of step-up transformers. So it steps up the EMF output into high voltages. And then we also make sure that the currents are lower. So you've got high voltage and lower currents so that we can be able to transport this energy, this electrical energy from one point to another. Long distances. For example, we do get some of our electricity from Mozambique, Kaurabasa. It's step-up transformer. They harness it and transport it in high voltages and low current. Let me write this down because it's very important. So you've got high voltage and low currents over large distances. And this avoid or creates a situation where you've got minimum loss of energy through heat or through heating. Okay? So you have got minimum loss of heat energy as electricity is being transported from one power station to where it should be used. Okay, so you know that when you've got high currents, the heat energy is the build-up of heat energy is going to be too high. You can lose a lot of energy along the way. But then for kilometers and kilometers of distances, we are able to carry or transport that electrical energy until it is safe for use at home. Now, when it gets to a sub-power station next to your home, next to an industrial area, what happens? The energy, these pylons that are used and the cables to carry this energy, they get into what we call step-down transformers. Remember, at the beginning it was step-up transformers. Now they come to something called step-down transformers. At this point, the energy is stepped down from high voltages to low voltages, and then we can have the desired current that we want. We can actually get the maximum current that we want from there. And then we harness that energy, taken into houses, okay, into homes for use in that way, and into companies for use. So that is the beauty of using AC generators, the use of step-down and step-up transformers. Like I said, these ones are used at the generation stations, okay? And then municipalities, step-down transformers are going to be used by the municipalities where they step it down and then they distribute it to our homes for use. So that is what they do there. Now, just quickly looking at some questions that can help us understand more what we're talking about here. This may not be, the first question may not necessarily be very, an exam-related type of question, but it will help us understand something. And of course, yes, you would be asked these things, but not perhaps as simple as it is, but expect it. Let's look at it. 1.1. Which physics principle forms the basis in which generators function? Okay? Now, if you look at this question here, it talks about, as we know, as scientists, like John was explaining in the previous lesson, that principle in which there is at the end, you end up having some EMF produced or generated or current generated. What principle is that? This is what we call the electromagnetic induction. Okay, you must know that generators are based in this principle here. Their function is based on the electromagnetic induction principle. This is the physics principle they are actually looking for. Like, okay, how motors function? They are based on what we call the motor effect principle. Okay, so we need to know these principles here. And state the energy conversion that occurs when a generator is operating. Generators obviously convert what we call mechanical energy to electrical energy. Okay, now the opposite will be the case when we're talking about motors. All right, now let's have a breather at that point.
Talking about that, I'm so excited. I feel like standing and do a dance, but I have a problem with my mic. It's gonna fall, and James is gonna get me into trouble.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I have exciting news. We've just hit 48,000 likes and 30. So it's all big ups to you, Mindsetters. We just wanna say we appreciate 48,000 likes. We just like that. If you're not part of the family, go over Facebook. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/learnextra. But also another exciting thing to share with you as Mindsetters on my side. I have a very close friend of mine who's watching the show. His name is Teriso Sien from all the way in Rustenburg.
Wow.
Now, this friend of mine is a special friend who spoke the same language as me, who believed in me, who was there to help me during my tertiary life. He believed in me more than I believed in myself, you know.
Wow.
And that's the kind of inspiration I'd just like to share to the Mindsetters, that be careful of the friends that you have. Are they the friends that speak the same language as you, friends that believe in you? If they're not, it's still early to change. But big ups to my friend who's watching right now. You rock, my friend. Otherwise, Mindsetters, see you after the break. Welcome back, Mindsetters. Now I have a couple of questions that I have of our Facebook page and comments too. But I would like to place a challenge. If you'd like to see me by the end of the show dancing, if 10 people say I should dance on the wall, then I'll dance. James will play some music and we'll see how does that go. But otherwise, here's a comment from Refitla Mes Refi Mtombeni. What a name. Refitla say, oh, he's even wearing a Mindset t-shirt on his profile. So big ups, buddy. He says, holla to Mr. TK. He's making his electrodynamics simple. I was not understanding it before, but now I understand. You know what? Natusisa in Tsonga.
Wow.
Nice one.
Na cancer, cancer.
If you can say it in your own language.
Yes, na cancer records. Keep up.
That's
keep on listening.
Mtombeni.
Mtombeni, yes, Mtombeni. Ungasuki tsamsa so donza.
I can't support you. You can't swene.
All right.
So nkarile ita questions.
Yeah.
Take some questions. Right, here's some two muvutiso.
Yeah.
One is from Tabo Mangali. He says, how does the current move? Does it move from the wire that is connected to the North Pole or from the South Pole? I'm really confused. And the last one is from Clive Heyman, who's always watching, and big ups to you. Holla at you, Clive, and your classmates. He says, can you use the DC generators to supply electricity to electrical buses?
Okay, I'm trying to move back to some generator here. Just for the first question there that says, does the current move from the North Pole to wherever?
Or the South Pole,
now,
yes.
What we need to know here, and it's a good question because I think people get very confused. Here, what we have here are magnets. So this could be north, and then we can have our south, that side. Now the magnet has got nothing to do with the current or the EMF that has been that is traveling. All they do is to make sure that there is EMF induced onto the coil. So there is no wire connected here, no wire connected to magnets. Okay, there is no wire connected to the magnets. So where is the EMF coming from? When the EMF is induced onto this coil here, remember the coil, that is where your conductor is, and you may have a number of tens for that coil when you are making it, just to make sure that you maximize the input. When the EMF is induced here, all it does, it comes out, and here are the connectors. And these connectors here are not connected to the magnets, but they are from your commutator. So because this is a DC generator, remember that in this split ring commutator, make sure that current moves in one direction. So if this one is positive, that will be negative, and therefore this is where the current is harnessed. The EMF is harnessed from here, and then you can begin to use it, but not on the magnets. The magnets, there's no wires connected to them. All they do, their function is to provide that magnetic field, that of which, of course, will be moving from north to south. That will be the direction of the magnetic field. That is their duties. Okay, hopefully you got that. And the second one was, Well, can we use DC
Generators.
Yes, we can use them. They have not proven to be that effective. That's why we're not using them today. And we're still continuing to make use of engines that are running from fossil fuels, from petrol and diesel and other things that are actually not so good for our environment. But we stuck with that until scientists like you can actually work out something, and perhaps you can work from these theories here and come up with something better.
So you're saying we can use them to supply electricity to electrical buses?
Yes, we can do that. We can do that. Actually, some of the appliances in buses now, actually, even in other vehicles, do use direct current generators to function. Okay, so now, moving on, here we need to talk about what we call the root mean square values for potential difference and current. Okay, now in alternating current circuits, both the potential, in AC circuits, both the potential difference and the current will continuously fluctuate between the negative maximum and the positive maximum, okay, over a period of time, as we have seen. And this graph here that you see here explains that. So this graph below shows us the fluctuating potential difference and the current. You see here, this is the potential difference measured in volts against time measured in seconds. And what do you have? You've got that sinusoidal curve that is moving in that way. And if you look here, they say here the root mean square value for voltage will be that one. It's not at the maximum, that is the maximum peak. It's somewhere there, which is not by the maximum, and it's not lower down close to zero. Now, I want to explain something here, but let's come to the current. The same thing can be said for current. You still have the sinusoidal curve as you see it, but then the root mean square value at that point there, not at the maximum, but at that point. Okay, and how does it come about? If we use, for example, if we took average potential difference from what we have here, or average current, what is going to happen? Look at it. When you take an average of something, you add those things together, okay, those quantities together, and you divide by the number of quantities that you have added together. So if, for example, I took from there to there, this is the maximum and the maximum. If I add these two together, they are, because this one is positive and this one is negative, you add a positive to a negative. Say you add positive 5 up here, and then you add negative 5 there, so you'll be adding to a negative 5. What are you going to get? You're going to get 0. And then, of course, we're going to divide by that, and then division by 0 divided by any number is equal to 0. So you are going to get 0 voltage, or the same can be said for current. Now, that would be giving us the average. So the average will always be 0. So the average is not a user-friendly value that we can work on. 0 is not user-friendly. It's not going to tell us much, okay, about this output voltage or the current. Now, what do we do to make sure we work with workable values that can be meaningful to what we deal with when we look at electric circuits? We make use of the root mean squares. And how do they did they come up to the root mean square values? They used this equation here for power, and say, because power, if you take the two and put them together, it's voltage times current. Now, if you take a negative voltage times the negative current, it gives you something positive. You take the positive voltage and the positive current, it gives you something positive. So in other words, what you would have for power versus, so power in watts versus time in seconds, you will have a graph that would basically be similar to your DC generator curve, something like that. And then if you want to take the average of that, you will do the same. and say, okay, let me add this, get the half of it, or divide by, if you're adding 2, you're going to divide by 2, so you have something like a half. So when you do that, you end up coming up with what we call the root mean square values. Okay, don't have time to explain all those things there, but I wish you could go back to your books there and try to see where it comes from. But then if you look at it, say you want to get the average power, because average will be something in between here for power. It won't be the root mean power value, which will be somewhere up there. Why did I get there? Let me use that color. The root mean value, sorry about that. Remember, it was something very close to the peak like that. This is P average. So we don't talk about power root mean square value. We're talking about the average. And when we work it out from there, we will then say, okay, this will be equal to V, all right, average, or V root mean square, times I root mean square. And what you're going to have is that if you get the average here, it means you are actually coming here and say, okay, what is half of that? So that gives you half of the V max and half of the I max. So both halves are there. So you've got a half here of V max and half of I max. Okay, now if you do this here, if you say, okay, this is the same as saying 1 times V is V over 2, V max over 2, but we take the square root of 2 there because we want to get the root mean square values. So we do the same here, I max divided by the square root of 2 there, because this will be 1 times I max, so it will be like that. So you would therefore say at this point here, your V max, or let me just say your average, your root mean square value for current will be equal to what? Will be equal to I max divided by the square root of 2. The same way when you're looking for V root mean square value, it will be equal to V max divided by the square root of 2. That is where that formula comes from. So I'm glad quickly with the time that we had, we could come to that point. So that's where it comes from. And then you can therefore begin to use it in questions, okay? Like for example, in most South African households, the potential difference delivered across the terminals of a wall plug is 220 volts. This VRMS value, because that is V, that's the root mean square value that is supplied to us. It's not the peak voltage. So that appliances would operate on, okay? So it is not the maximum value. We can actually find what the maximum value is. And how do we do that? We know that V root mean square will be equal to V max over the square root of 2. So V max would be equal to VRMS times the square root of 2. So if VRMS is 220 in South Africa, you multiply that by the square root of 2, you should be getting something like 311.1 or so. I don't want to use a calculator quickly to get that, but then that is your voltage, so that we don't waste time. So that's how you work it out, okay? And don't forget that every time you work out something in science, you put in the unit of what you are working out. So that, in summary, is the equations or the formulas that we're talking about, and you have seen, I've shown you where they come from. So they shouldn't hurt you anymore, okay? Now, let's have a look at this one here. Okay, now, with AC motors, okay, most household appliances like fridges, washing machines, and vacuum cleaners have what we call AC motors. I think you hear them working and making noise at the background and with them, of course, they have thermostats. For example, the fridge will not always be on and the motor running and making that noise, at some point it's going to stop, it's going to cut off. Okay, so those are AC motors. These have the same components as the AC generator, except that we make use of of electricity to turn the coil in a magnetic field, and therefore we make the motor to do work for us. Okay, now let's come to question number 2. Let's see if we can have some time to do it here. Okay, now we have done it. Actually, we had this one 220 volts, and we wanted to find out the maximum potential difference, and you can actually calculate it by saying V max will be equal to V RMS times the square root of 2, and then you get that answer there. Okay, moving on, let's have a look at this one here. Really want to say something about this question 3. The simplified sketch below shows the principle of operation of alternating current generator. So you are told it's a generator, and like I said, always that tells you this thing is being turned in that magnetic field, and therefore it is a generator. It's an AC generator because you can also see you've got slip ring commutator there. All right, now name the parts labeled A and B. Very simple question. This was an exam question. This is how simple the exam can be. Look at it. Label or name the parts labeled A and B. What is A? Look at A. If you look at where A is pointing, A is actually showing a brush there. Okay, or actually you can actually, the diagram there tells you immediately because we have labeled it. But I was showing you how simple the exam can be. So what will be part B? All right, so if you look at part A and part B are actually your brushes there, which are actually terminals. Okay, so that's where your terminals are. That's where your energy is being harnessed, okay, as you see them there. So they are brushes, but they are terminals because at the end of the day, that's where you harness that energy there. 3.2, in which direction does segment PQ of the coil have to be rotated in order to cause the current direction as shown in the diagram? Write down only clockwise or anti-clockwise. Now you can use the right-hand rule, okay? Generally, most people are right-handed. They are not like John, who is left-handed. Okay, so right-handed people with generators, right hand. If you don't want to use the right-hand rule like that, you can use the right-hand rule as in that way. Okay, so the direction here, we should have had that. Okay, so well, that's all we had time for. I'm afraid I have to hand over to Abram, but go on and find what the direction is going to be there as you look at that.
Thank you so much. Because of time, guys, I'm sorry I can't dance, but I'll dance after the show. Be sure to check us out tomorrow. But otherwise, thank you to Macmillan, our proud sponsor, and to you for watching. We love you, and peace.